So this is why we need to separate myths from scientific facts about menstruation, because menstruation, boys, you all don't want to know that, nothing happens to you, so let's just, you go and play cricket, bola gana and pittaniyata, that's it, and then teach the girls, okay, this is what, don't eat, don't bath, don't go to the temple, don't exercise, just stay at home, don't look at men, stay at home. So, mindful menstruation is a process that we help our communities to counter stigma and discrimination that stems from fear and ignorance, to better understand how our bodies work. So that's not a one program, it's a process. That's why I use the word process, because it requires a lot of time, a lot of listening, a lot of understanding, a lot of criticism, a lot of questioning. All this is involved in mindful menstruation, and obviously at the end, hopefully our communities, women and girls, are able to practice, afford, use, and also be eco-conscious in terms of menstrual hygiene. So that is the ideal situation that I would see, but it's a process. That mindful menstruation is a process where we understand how and why our bodies work in this way. The reason why we need a conversation about menstruation is there's so much taboo around menstruation still. And in rural settings, the problem is that menstruation is associated with so much shame. Women can't even access hygiene products, sanitary napkins. And then they had to resort to traditional methods like cloth. Problem with cloth, I'm all for using clean cloth because it's environmentally friendly. Problem with it is when there's a lot of shame and embarrassment and cultural perceptions and myths around menstruation, women are not even able to wash and dry properly these clothes. So then you're drying it in the night under the bed. So you're not drying it properly. So these practices are very unhygienic. Then it can lead to infections, septicemia, various things, because you are using something that is not cleaned and dried properly. Those who can afford sanitary napkins, is one story is that recently a woman said when she wants to buy a packet of pad, she would go to the shop but she wouldn't go in, so she'll just hang around the shop to make sure that no one is around, right? Going to the shop, she would loudly say, "Ama biscuit packet ekak genne yanawa," right, to somebody, some neighbor. So, doing the laying the groundwork to make sure that no one thinks that she is going to, because it's embarrassing for her, obviously, because of the cultural practices, all that. It's menstruation perceived as something very bad and unclean, right? So she would establish that she's going to buy a packet of biscuits, and she'd go and hang a little and then go into, in the shops like grocery stores, that you have like a cabinet, glass cabinet with all the pharmaceutical stuff like the plaster, Dettol and the pads. So she would go in, put her hand into the cupboard, take it and keep it at the counter discreetly, and then come back again and ask for the biscuit packet. Right? So you ask for the biscuit packet, and then Mudalari would give the biscuit packet, and this in a bag, obviously. So because there's so much shame, right? Nobody wants to go and just directly ask for a sanitary napkin, pack of sanitary napkins, because it's something to be embarrassed about, right? So this is why we need to separate myths from scientific facts about menstruation, because menstruation is science. So that is what we are trying to do with the mindful menstruation, also to teach or educate women and girls about how natural this process is, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about. And it is a right to remain hygienic, it is a right to be able to access these products, and also it is right to understand or educate yourselves about how your bodies work. So how we approach, as I always say, that we can go and talk to a community for hours and hours and hours. If they are not ready to listen, there's no point. So they have to be able to have an open mind to listen to what is said. So what we've been working with rural women in Ibagamu Divisional Secretariat area for over 2 years now, and we've merged mindful menstruation with a lot of other programs. Mindful menstruation actually is not only about menstruation, because we talk about bodily integrity. Then we are talking about prevention of violence. Because of these things, there is certain kind of acceptance, and also we distribute free sanitary napkins to over 150 women monthly, those who are part of our groups, to stay healthy. Because if there is no sanitary pads provided to them, they'll be still using cloth napkins. This is what we are trying to do, is actually harm reduction, right? And then, so after we distributed, only they saw that there is a space for them to talk about these things. Because so far there has not been a space for even women to talk about, and women think that it is not something we talk about. So as soon as you open up that space for women and girls, that idea is well received by the community. Community always wants to learn more. So what we've done is actually open up a space for women, and because we've made them understand that we don't judge you for having your period. We don't judge you for menstruating. Right? So when we talk about napkins and we try to distribute napkin, we touch the napkin, we distribute them, we go and talk to them, ask about how last month's period was. Immediately there's like a certain space you create, right, for them to be open. And then they participate willingly. Actually, we have their 100% participation in conversations, because they bring up their challenges, and we've come to a point where they can also come up with solutions, which is like the point of having a conversation, right? So, talking about school curriculums, we already have information about menstruation. So, especially the grade 7 health and physical education textbook says that menstruation is not unclean. You can eat meat when you are on periods. You can take a bath, because in some cultures you are not allowed to take a shower, right? So you can bath, you can exercise, you can go to work. It explains that this is a natural process. But the problem is this lesson taught? This is why there is a lack of implementation. There are so many gaps in teaching also in health and physical education, because even the existing information is not taught or is not given to children. Because sometimes the health and physical education is, anyway, it's not a core subject, so it becomes an optional subject later on. But still, if the health and physical teacher is not there, she is absent, what would your teachers have done? You will be sent to the grounds, right? But if the maths teacher doesn't come, somehow principal will come and teach you maths. So this is the priority that the subject has been given. So without at least implementing what we already have, I don't think we can even talk about including having a proper sex education program in Sri Lanka. Menstruation has become a cultural thing, and we've forgotten that it's scientific thing. No, so the teachers would say, no, you can't take a bath, you can't go to the temple on periods. The teachers, I've seen teachers say this. So when teachers say that, it's hugely problematic, because teachers are there to teach the syllabus. And also, on the other hand, though, to give it to teachers have not been trained properly to talk about these things, and teachers are also embarrassed because they have not been brought up in an open environment where they can talk about these things openly. So the teachers are embarrassed about their own menstruation. I know teachers who take their pad home, because go in the morning with extra pad if you want to change it, and there's no place to throw, they don't want to throw. So they put it in the bag and bring the dirty pad home in the bus by 5 o'clock in the evening, and then they. So there is so much, and I know teachers who take leave on periods because, especially if you're working in a boys' school, there's lack of. And other thing is that the health and physical education curriculum sometimes is only taught to girls because menstruation, boys, you all don't want to know that, nothing happens to you, so let's just, you go and play cricket, bola gana and pittaniyata, that's it, and then teach the girls, okay, this is what, don't eat, don't bath, don't go to the temple, don't exercise, just stay at home, don't look at men, stay at home, right? So when even civil society, when we talk about sex education, you asked about it. So we talk about sex education. There are authorities that you can go and talk to, know about these things, do the policy changes, and seeing the lack of interest on the issue kind of have exhausted even our passion to do something, passion to work with communities, because it's very frustrating because this lack of even understanding, lack of interest, absolutely closed doors within institutions. Who can take these decisions? Who can change curriculums? Who can decide what goes on the curriculum? Right? Seeing that made me also realize, made us at Grassrooted, all of us realize that we can only fill in gaps. Right? It's the government's responsibility to make sure that there is a implementation, but there's so much we can do if the governments are not willing, right? So what we can do is, rather than fighting with the government or governments or whoever to come to, fill in small gaps in communities. That is why mindful menstruation also started, because when we go to the rural level, the grassroots level, we also see a barrier or information flow in terms of information, how information flows to grassroots levels. It's very different. Even though we live in a digital age, even though we have internet, over 50% of the population have internet, all that is true. But if you go 20 kilometers away, even in Mount Lavinia, you don't have signal, right? And it's expensive. It's gone really up, and it's expensive. You can't afford it. You have free package, this and that, but you don't really get internet for those things. It's very slow. And then rural level, when you send a WhatsApp messages, you have to call the phone and say, "Ma WhatsApp ekak kewwa me data on kala poddak e balanna," right? That's kind of situation. So television is the only medium that young people today get information from. No matter how much we say we have the largest internet penetration and all that thing, but the information is not actually going to the rural level. So that is why this kind of traditional methods of meeting people, organizing people, talking to people in their own space. We are not inviting them to a fancy hotel and talk about it, because we can invite them to a fancy hotel but only once, right? Because you need a lot of money, right? To go into their village, we don't need so much money. We need only a little amount of money, but the impact you are creating, and you create that impact in the community, not in some fancy hotel. So Grassrooted Trust is running this program called Mindful Menstruation in Ibagamuwa division at the moment with 100 women. It's a continued discussion process where we meet every group once a month and we talk about different aspects of our bodily integrity. So if someone wants to support us, they can support financially, or they can provide with material like disposable sanitary napkins or cloth sanitary napkins, or period cups. If they want to buy and donate some of these things that go to women, they can do that, or they can sponsor for these meetings. So one meeting would cost about 5,000. So there are so we have 10 meetings a year, 13 times we are meeting, multiplied by that. So 5,000 at that. And if there's anyone who wants to support facilitating some of the meetings, they are also welcome.